Dixieville.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. It's once again time for the WADcast, Writers, Actors, Directors podcast, episode number 88. I am Josh, joined as always by the people that wish land was world, Brandon and Kente.
Oh my God. What's up, everybody?
Hey.
Happy Friday night.
Hey, everybody. Sorry about the camera thing. Hey, everybody.
If you're joining us from the Infectious Geek, welcome. Good to have you. Where you saw, for once, Brandon is the dirty cheater in this trio tonight. But yeah, usually, Kente, Brandon gives me all sorts of grief about being on other shows, even if it's shows on our, from our company, just like, why are you doing other shows? It's like, well, because that's our job.
It is not
what we do. But finally, Brandon branched out and did a guest spot to help, get awareness for the WADcast and WADco out there. So, yay, right?
And can I say that I think I did that like a champ because I'm still rocking that migraine from earlier. So I think I did a damn good job.
You did. I watched, and unfortunately, you didn't see all of the comments that I made.
I did not. I can't see those. So
yeah, with the way you were talking to your girlfriend, I thought you were gonna die, and I explicitly said in the chat, you should at least have the decency to die on your own damn show.
But you know what? I'm here, so I didn't die. But yeah, for those of you that missed it, Danielle and I are like settling in a new place, a new apartment, and the living room is right next to the bedroom. And so while I'm talking on this other podcast, my voice obviously is I have a lot of bass to my voice, so it carries, especially in a big open area. Danielle comes out of the room, tells me to move it to the kitchen. I tell her I cannot because I have all this stuff set up here, which is too bright. There we go. Now I'm not going blind now. And then I told her that she should take her bonnet off so I could show everyone my beautiful significant other. I offered her my hat. She takes her bonnet off because I was already sliding the phone over to show everyone her. And then I offered her my hat to make sure that Danielle knew that she was a free elf. And she did not appreciate that at all. She threw it back at me pretty hard. But yeah, so here we are, though. It's Friday night. She's in there doing her thing. I'm out here doing mine. This is how relationships work. So, yeah. Turns out like 4'11" girls don't like being called elves. Who knew?
Yeah. I read that somewhere.
Yeah, it could have been worse. It could have been like, hey, I loved you in Lord of the Rings. I mean, you were really good with that axe. But then she'd get mad. Maybe if she's ever seen Lord of the Rings. I don't know if she's ever seen it. So I'm not going to try it. But either way, I'm here. So I'm alive. For your viewing pleasure. But so, Josh, what are we talking about tonight, man? Like, are we talking about sequels? Are we talking about remakes, reboots? Why they suck? Why they're needed? What are we talking about?
The answer is yes to all of those things.
Okay.
Well, in general, the conversation goes, especially if you're a member of the movie addiction Facebook group.
Yep.
Movies that get announced, and the responses are typically another sequel or another reboot or another remake or whatever the case may be. People are always upset about these things, and if you want to go to one of the screenwriting groups, that you get that added flavor of, I've got 17 original scripts. Why don't they let me make my movies? You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And we have already talked on this show at length about what the financial benefit is of making sequels, reboots, and remakes. But so tonight, I thought we would come at it from a different direction and, you know, talk about how it would be creatively beneficial to do these things. And some of the ways that it was done right, some of the ways that, you know, quite frankly, the ball was dropped. And sometimes there are times when it was absolutely unwarranted.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I want to get into tonight. What do you guys think?
I'm good with it.
All right.
Because I mean, there are some movies that come out where it's like, and like Josh, everyone here, and I've said this numerous times on the show. Everyone knows my thoughts on sequels. Lots of times they're just not necessary. They're not needed most times.
Right.
Saw was a great movie. I liked the first Saw movie. But then it went from being what the first Saw movie was, and it just turned into torture porn for the rest of the movie. So that's pretty much how I look at it. It's like it just fell so far from the original material.
Because it took the concept of torture porn and expanded it into an annual series explicitly for the sake of cashing out.
And that's it. But it's like, you know, you have the first movie, Saw.
Yeah.
You have Adam and Dr. Gordon who are stuck in this like rundown bathroom with what you think is a dead body, you know, in between them. It is, and they're trying to figure things out. In the meantime, you have Dr. Gordon, like his whole affair, his marriage and everything else. It's all being laid out bare, all of it.
Right.
And it's really just like, it's all just like a test of his character and Adam's character as well, who is pretty much listed as being an apathetic, like just photographer, private investigator kind of deal.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever he was, it's been a long time since I've seen the photojournalist, whatever it was. But you saw some things that were pretty rough to watch, like, you know, from the reverse bear trap and her having to stab her cellmate to get the key. The most graphic thing in that entire movie was actually Dr. Gordon sawing off of his foot.
Yes.
Which was saved for the very end. All the other Saw films, all the gore and everything else is immediately thrown at you from the get-go, from the opening scene. And this one didn't do that. It was such an effective ending, and the ending of Saw, where you realize that the dead body was Jigsaw the entire time. It was John Kramer. He gets up, he tells Adam, the key to your chains is in that tub, which, you know, obviously went down the drain at the beginning of the movie. But as Adam is screaming in horror, Jigsaw says game over and slams the door shut, and it ends on a black screen with Adam screaming. That was such an effective ending to a horror film. That to me is a horrific ending. You don't know what Adam's fate is. You don't know what Dr. Gordon's fate is. You don't know anything about these characters, and if they lived, if they died, whatever. You just know that Dr. Gordon was seen last crawling out, bleeding profusely from his leg, and Adam is screaming in terror with a gunshot wound, if I remember right. And that's it. The movie ends with no music, just Adam screaming in pitch blackness. That was a terrifying ending, and I have not seen a single like Saw film since then, even Spiral, even come close to having that effective kind of ending.
But Spiral did have the Chris Rock.
Doing the Chris, like, let me see if I can do the Chris Rock face from Spiral. 1 second. Chris Rock, the entire Spiral movie. Like, you know, he could be serious and not have to look like he just sucked on a lemon.
Mm-hmm.
I'd make a joke, but I'm not going to make the joke because I feel bad for Chris Rock considering everything that happened at the Oscars, but still.
Kente says hi.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one of you guys, I'm going to present a challenge. And it's going to work out like this probably for the rest of the show. You threw Saw under the bus pretty quick. Now, I want you guys to think of good reasons why that series continued.
I can't. It didn't have. It didn't have to.
Besides the money.
Yes, besides the money.
Because I'm just playing the advocate for the devil. Because it was able to get deeper into the mythology of the character, and it was a meditation on sin. And am I churning out the bullshit?
No,
Okay,
I can kind of see where you're coming from with that. But even then, the 3 movies I'll watch of the Saw franchise is Saw 1 through 3. Because at the end of 3, for those of you who haven't seen this, spoiler alert, John Kramer dies. I already just spoiled it. John Kramer dies at the end of Saw 3. His throat slashed by a vengeful father. But even then, that ended on a terrifying jump off point where the father is locked in this room. He's screaming. He doesn't know where his daughter is. His wife just had her head blown off by like a shotgun collar. I mean, and John Kramer, the only person that knows where his daughter is at that point, because Amanda's dead now. The only person that knows where his daughter is, apparently, was John Kramer, which we then find out future into the series that he had another apprentice that knew where she was because he found, the kid instantly. But 3 is where they should have stopped it, but it just kept carrying on. And it got more and more intricate as it went on with the traps. It got more unrealistic. Because let's face it, Saw 1, you could believe that an engineer would build a reverse bear trap, or had the capabilities to build a reverse bear trap that would split your skull wide the hell open. You could believe that an engineer would be able to electrify chains and shackles and everything else, and have it within his wherewithal on how to get people to inject people with something and carry them to a location. The scene with Danny Glover and his partner, where everything was booby trapped. You could believe that an engineer could do this stuff. All these other things that they have would take months to set up. Like in the time that John Kramer was diagnosed with his condition, everything else, it doesn't really. The whole insurance movie, I think Saw 6, where he had them stuck in that maze with the steam pipes and the fires and whatnot. That is so damn intricate to set up for someone that's not an engineer. And the other 2 people, Amanda and I forget the guy's name, were not engineers. They were one was a detective and one was a former druggie. John Kramer was the civil engineer. He designed and he built these things.
No, he was an uncivil engineer.
No, uncivil.
All right, this isn't the Sawcast, but I will. I'm gonna take a shot at finding the bright side of having the Saw franchise continue. First, I'm gonna go with. Let's see.
Yeah, let's hear this shit.
I do like the idea that it became a challenge for special effects artists to come up with new and creative kills for the screen.
Yeah. So,
just like Final Destination, where that's the whole purpose of the series, I think they did a pretty good job of taking that torch and kind of running with it. It's all about the deaths, right? And I will give the series the credit that when it came to sequels, they took a lot of risks, and I actually enjoyed the nonlinear storytelling throughout the movies, where several of them are just literally taking place at the same time. And you kind of see bits and pieces of what turns out to be a bigger picture in the end. So while, yes, I think it goes without saying that the Saw series was done explicitly because they saw that it was going to be popular and they saw that it was going to make them money. By the way, that's why all movies are made, to make money. But and of course, when it comes to franchises, that's why they continue to be made. But
yeah,
the only creative aspect, I think, is through the way some of these films were shot, at least storyline wise, concurrently, and the creative kills. Those are the creative benefits from the Saw series.
I think, to be fair with Saw, I think the success behind Saw is much. I don't want to compare it to like Harry Potter, but in a way I can, with the release dates, and even Lord of the Rings. It became more of a tradition for Saw.
Yeah,
because Saw was released. Yeah, exactly. Every year on Halloween, a new Saw movie came out.
And
so it was that right there. I will say it's ingenious the way they did it, because every year you knew that company was going to make millions of dollars off this franchise.
Mm-hmm.
Because every single year, as they were doing the post-production of one movie, they were already in the pre-production or current production or just production in general of the next movie. So as they're wrapping up production, getting ready to send out to distributors and getting it sent out to theaters and the premieres, all that stuff, they're already working on the next one. And they did this for what, like 7-8 years straight, I believe.
Yeah.
Just straight through until Jigsaw, which took a little bit longer to come out. Sorry, let me shut this fridge. I didn't shut it right. Until Jigsaw came out, and then Spiral, which came out because Chris Rock was a huge fan of the series. But you're right. It's not about. So we're not talking about Saw. We're talking about sequels. But just to end, what my point with Saw is that Saw was a tradition, which is what made it successful.
Yeah.
But it still could have gone down in the annals of history, out of cinema history, as a great horror film or psychological horror film, whatever you want to call it. That came out in 2000, I think, like 4, if I'm not mistaken. It could have had a much bigger following. It could have had like cult status, which it still does. But I think the other ones still just ended up cheapening it by making it a tradition. It's like the Final Destination movies. They weren't really needed. But, But either way, so what else? I mean, what do you have? Should we talk about like sequels that were great? Or that maybe even were outshine the original?
Let's first go into the direction of just in general, why is a sequel needed?
Okay, I'll take a stab at it. Sequels are needed to, if you establish the story in the first one, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you could say a sequel is needed to continue on the tale and to deepen the mythology of the story, and also take the audience, show the audience things that maybe you didn't get to in the original.
Yeah, I'll go with that.
Yeah.
I mean, you have sequels that come out that continue the I guess, would you consider like Lord of the Rings and those movies like sequels, or would you consider them just like one continuous movie if you just watch them back to back?
Continuous movie.
Okay, yeah. That's how I look at it.
It's all one story.
Yep. So it's like you have other movies like I don't even look at like the Star Wars movies as sequels and prequels. I look at them as one continuous story.
Right.
And I get shit about that all the time. But I'm like, no, they're not sequels. It's continuing the Skywalker story. It's one long story. Mm-hmm. The whole thing is a Skywalker story, from Anakin Skywalker as a slave to Ben Solo, who is Luke Skywalker's nephew. It's all a Skywalker story. all of it.
Right.
It's all that anthology. But
like Hangover is.
what's up, Kente?
The Hangover is one story.
No, I think you mean it's
The Hangover. Oh, God. It's well, no. The first two movies are the same story. The third one had nothing to do with the Hangover at all.
Right.
The third one should have been like the kidnapper or the kidnapping or something, because that's what that movie was. It was a kidnapping. But it's like then you have movies like Alien and Aliens and Alien 3, one long story. Alien Resurrection, I look at that as like a sequel kind of deal. Well, really, like any like sequel, if you can look at any sequel as like a continuation of the original story. But then you have movies that kind of aren't continuations of the original story, because you have like a Predator. Predator 2 is not a continuation of the original story. It is a separate movie with a separate character, a separate situation, and a separate location. You don't have Arnold Schwarzenegger, you have Danny Glover. It's not the same Predator as the first movie because that one died. This is a new Predator.
Spoilers.
Yeah, spoilers.
Now, I think it could be an important point to make here. Is Alien and Aliens the same story?
I think so.
I mean, it's the same universe, same characters and everything, but much like Saw, right? Alien could have stood alone and had that ending wrap everything up. What Aliens wasn't a necessary sequel, I don't think.
No, it wasn't. And it's also not a horror film to me. It's more of an action film. It's a sci-fi film. The first Alien movie, that was a horror film. That was a terrifying movie.
That was what?
Ridley Scott?
Right.
Huh?
Ridley Scott, yeah.
And then James Cameron.
Ridley Scott, yeah. And James Cameron picked up the reins. And I forget who did Alien 3.
David Fincher.
Huh? Okay, David Fincher, that's right. But it's like, like Alien 1 through 3, it's one continuous movie. Now, were the other two movies needed? No. But Aliens, I'm sorry, it may not have been a horror film, but it made Ripley, it even made her more of a badass in that movie than she was in the first one. Like, then you have Alien 3, which is just, oh no. It exists.
That's where my question comes in, because you do have the same character of Ripley, but she is behaving in a completely different manner.
Believe it or not.
First movie.
What do you mean, like in Aliens or Alien 3?
Alien.
Well, Aliens, see, at first, Aliens, like, I will say in the beginning of Aliens, she was more frustrated because, it was pretty much clear, like, what they wanted from the get-go. They were going back to this planet and everything else, like, whatever, and, like, when she heard about it, like, she was very apprehensive about it. And no one was listening to her, despite her experience with one of these creatures. And that was just with one.
Well, it's because she's a woman who listens to women.
God.
Brandon does.
I do not.
Just don't let her.
Thank God I have these headphones on, though. But no, it's like, but then, like, as it went on, I would say the reason why she acted differently in Aliens is because she also was in charge of keeping Newt safe, the little girl. And then when Newt was taken by the aliens, well, even the aliens didn't act the same if you think about it, because like in this, like the aliens were more of a hive mind than they were just like a singular. In the first Alien movie, they had the one alien that came from the facehugger that got John hurt and burst out of his chest, and the girl on the ship. In the second one, they're in a hive. They have a queen. They have all this stuff going on.
The great part is when she was taken, the little girl, when they called Sigourney Weaver Ripley, and she said she has a certain set of skills. She said to the
I will find you and I will kill you in that Irish accent. Yeah, I remember that.
I'm sorry, I couldn't help myself.
But no, it's like when Newt was taken, Ripley had to be a different person, because in the first one, she was just trying to survive. That was the first one. She was just trying to survive. That was the entire movie. In this one, she's not just trying to survive, but she's trying to save someone. Like, she's trying to save a little girl. Like, Ripley is, lest we forget, Ripley was a mother in the first movie. She did have a daughter.
She was a mother. That's for sure.
One bad mother.
And then she went on and got possessed and everything else and became like, Zool and, But no, it's like she had to be a different person. But like even then, like, while we're talking about sequels, I will say Ghostbusters 2, that is a sequel. That is a straight up sequel. It's not a continuation of the original story. It is a sequel. It's a different story in itself. And for those of you listening, when I say this, just so I can ease any confusion, when I say a sequel versus an ongoing story, I would say The Hobbit is its own movie. Its own trilogy is one long story. Mm-hmm. Lord of the Rings is its sequel because that is a separate story with separate people, but it's separate location, separate circumstance. It's a different kind of journey for these characters. So even if it's the same characters, it's a different journey. The entire Star Wars thing, when I say that's one long story, it's because it's all about the Jedi versus the Sith. That's all those movies are. Right. So it's like, and eventually it turns into like the Jedi struggling, whatever. But
I think the reason why Ghostbusters 2 is very good is because Bobby Brown's in it.
Oh God, Bobby Brown. And that's the first time the word proton pack was ever mentioned in a Ghostbusters movie, when he asked for one. But Ghostbusters 2, was it needed? No. Was it entertaining? It was okay. It wasn't as good as the first one. Afterlife, was it good? I thought it was great. Was it needed?
Yeah, I hear it's really good.
I actually cried in that movie. I actually teared up quite a few times in that movie. But the thing is like I teared up mainly because there was such an homage towards Harold Ramis. There is so much love for Harold Ramis in that movie. Mm-hmm. And there was so much love for the fan base. But now they're making a fourth Ghostbusters movie. And I know that there are 4 Ghostbusters movies now. I don't count the abortion that survived in 2016. I don't count that movie. That movie was not necessary. And it was literally made under fraudulent circumstances.
It's not canon.
Okay, what about Debbie Does Cincinnati? Is that a sequel or is that like a continuous story?
Oh God, it's been years.
Because Debbie Does Dallas was the original, and then she moved to Cincinnati and
I had no idea this was a thing.
Yeah. You didn't watch Debbie Does? Come on. You're not American, nope. Josh. No Golden Girls, no Debbie Does Dallas, and you're from Texas.
Well, Cincinnati's not in Texas, but Dallas is.
No, I said Dallas. Debbie Does Dallas is the original.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, anyway, so we're not talking about porn sequels. No. Okay.
No.
Those are.
But no, it's like you have to like start asking yourself, when is the sequel really necessary? Are they ever? They're not necessary ever. But if it's a way to carry on a legacy, now all these horror films franchises are loaded with sequels. You have Halloween, Friday the 13th. You have Nightmare on Elm Street, Child's Play. You have all these movies that have like this Scream, which Scream does not need all these sequels. I cannot be the only person alone in the world that thinks that way. There's always like a duo, except for Scream 3, there's always a duo of serial killers that are teaming up.
Right. And I know over and over, yeah. Even though the last one was all right.
I haven't seen the last two. So.
It was the last one. It was all right. It was all right.
I walked out of the theaters on the last one.
I got one though. You probably haven't seen this movie. I would say the sequel is the way a sequel should be. And I feel like it really is a great companion to the original. And have you guys ever seen a movie called Sinister?
Yes.
No. Okay. The sequel to Sinister is very good. And what it does, it's almost like a companion piece for the original. And I think it does a great job of taking what was in the first one and then kind of giving you another view of how to look at the way that the events folded, but did it in a sequel. I think the sequel is underrated. I think it's very good. Actually, I love the Sinister movies. I wish they made I'm down for a third one. But I think the Mr. Boogie, Bagul, is a great
Yeah,
character. Great character, and he's in it just enough. Like, you know what I'm saying? If you haven't seen Sinister, watch Sinister and the sequel too. The only thing is, I'll say this. This is one thing I hate about the sequel is I hate rats. I hate mice. I will not watch movies. I will not watch Willard. I will not watch.
No, I love Willard.
I won't watch
Ninja Turtles.
I won't watch Ratatouille.
Yeah, what about Ninja Turtles?
Well, okay, Splinter is okay.
Splinter.
But no, but I'm serious. I do not like. There's that the part in Last Crusade, which we can talk about that too.
Yeah.
Where it goes, rats. I don't look at. I'm telling you, I have a thing. I don't like rats.
See, and like Indiana Jones, I will say each of those movies, that's not one long story. Those are sequels. They're different points, different journeys, and everything else, different places with different people involved. And Indiana Jones is like he's. Huh?
I will fight anybody. Temple of Doom. I love Temple of Doom. It's a great movie.
I like Temple of Doom.
It's fun.
Blondie was driving me. Blondie just drives me crazy.
You know that's his wife. Too,
Indy. Like, oh god, I know that's Spielberg's wife.
Yeah.
She's not an actress. I hope Steven Spielberg learned from that occasion.
You know what though? When I was a kid, I thought she was hot.
I never thought she was hot. She whined too much. Like, and then
She
go
from. Good. She looked good. That's what I'm saying.
She just annoyed me because you have the first movie where you have, I forget the actress's name, but you have the first movie, Raiders of the Lost Ark. I know
Karen something. Karen
Allen. That's it. But you have the first movie, which I know Temple of Doom is the prequel to Raiders of the Lost Ark. Temple of Doom is listed as being the first entry in the Indiana Jones series. But the thing is that Karen Allen was such a badass in the first released Indiana Jones movie. And you go from this badass, female character that could hold her own against Indiana Jones and then some. And then you have this whiny ass blonde chick from Temple of Doom. And then you go from that whiny ass blonde chick to a strong ass, again, female, kind of like antithesis to Indiana Jones in The Last Crusade.
Are you talking about the Nazi girl?
Yeah.
I was thinking because she went from that to an old man.
Oh, because the daddy.
I mean, Sean Connery.
You know what's a great scene in there where she goes, "This is how we say goodbye in Austria," or I think she says Austria, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And then he goes, and then she all makes out with Indiana Jones, and then the Nazi guy goes to the dad and he's like, "This is how we say goodbye in Germany," and then he punches him. And then he's like, I like Austria better. That movie is amazing. It's
even Sean Connery has like the most badass cinematic kill that I've ever seen in a movie, and all it took was an umbrella and a bunch of seagulls. Like that's all it took. Yeah. For those of you that have not seen The Last Crusade in a long time, I just watched these back to back a few days ago. But Sean Connery, just to remind all of our viewers here and our listeners, Sean Connery has this badass scene where they're trying to flee these Nazis, and they're coming in on their plane, like their fighter plane. They're coming in, they're about to kill them. So Sean Connery, in all of his brilliance, gets his umbrella, and he's an old man in this movie. He's just running down the beach and flashing his umbrella, like expanding and collapsing it. Yeah, scares these seagulls. They fly up, and maybe PETA would turn maybe PETA wouldn't be happy about this, but PETA's evil itself. So fuck PETA. There's my one per episode.
Well used.
He sends these seagulls flying up into the propellers of this plane, all over the weather. The blood and the feathers are all over the windshield. These guys crash and they blow up. This guy took out a fighter plane with an umbrella and a flock of seagulls. That's all it took for him.
Well, he could have just played Flock of Seagulls, but
he could, yeah. they would have crushed themselves.
I gotta warn you though. Josh was rooting for the Nazis in those in Raiders and Last Crusade, so he hates that scene. But another scene that's funny
Josh,
in that movie.
I can't believe you, buddy.
There's a scene that always cracks me up, but I don't think most people laugh at this scene. So when they see all the grails and the guy, I can't remember the guy that was working with the Nazis, and he takes the cup that he believes is the right one, and basically he's the Templar that's been in there forever is telling him choose right, or it can meet your fate. So they pick the cup, and then he drinks from the cup, and then he actually dies in a horrific way where his brain is sucked into his head and his eyeball.
Oh yes.
And then
Well, no, the whole series.
Wait.
Sorry. Go ahead.
So
Go
he
ahead.
goes-
Go ahead.
So
Go
he
ahead.
goes. So then the Templar turns to everybody else and says, he chose wrong. And I'm sitting there like, no shit, Sherlock.
Hold
Like,
on. He chose
Poorly.
Poorly, thank you. That's what he said. Yeah. And I'm sitting there like, you Mr. Obvious. Like he's stating the fucking obvious that he chose wrong.
He's
like,
been in that room for hundreds and hundreds of years. He's going to be narrating something.
Can we just take a second to
talk to?
Can we just take a second to thank Steven Spielberg for some of the most horrific PG-rated movie deaths of all time?
Yeah.
Because it's like Indiana Jones. I can think of two of them right off the top of my head. Actually three, and all three of the first Indiana Jones movies. First off, you have the Ark lid opening and the one guy's face melting, very graphically so. I was like 4 years old when I saw this. I had nightmares over this. The guy's face melting. The second one in Temple of Doom, when the guy is pulling out the other guy's heart. Kalima, hum nam shabai, hum nam shabai, hum nam shabai. And he's like, pulls out the guy's heart. And the heart's beating as they're lowering this guy into a pit of lava. And then as the guy on this grate is going into the lava, the heart catches on fire while it's beating. This is a PG movie.
You call him
And then,
Jones, doll.
Yeah, short round. You call him Dr. Jones.
I gotta say, the dinner scene was much more horrifying to me.
Oh, yeah, the monkey brains. The monkey brain. That's right. I forgot about that when they're eating the monkey brains.
Josh, you live in Jacksonville. I'm figured that you guys eat monkey brains there.
Have none of you guys ever actually eaten? Okay, am I the only person here to have ever actually eaten the brain before?
Probably, yeah.
Or
Daniel's over here gagging. I've eaten brain. I've eaten hearts. Like, I mean, it tastes good.
They're sleeping on the couch tonight, Brandon.
I'm working tonight. I'm not sleeping at all. But no, it's like it's really just, if you look at it, these are some graphic death scenes.
Wait, have
in
you
this
shown
movie?
Your
It's like it's really just
Indiana Jones?
Yeah.
Okay, I was about to call
everything
him
except Crystal Skull.
I was, you know what, Kente, thank you for asking him that. I was going to ask him too. And I was going to rip him a new one if he didn't.
Wait, have they seen
It's
Scarface
like,
yet?
God, love your children more.
Have your kids seen Scarface yet?
No, of course not.
Oh, we mean of course not. It's educational, and it takes place in Florida. Don't you want them to be at school talking about say hello to my little friend?
Yeah, don't you want them to know how the war on drugs is going? Show the kids Scarface, man.
1983?
It's very educational. That's where the war on drugs came from, though. That was before the war on drugs started.
When they get to Uncle Kente's house, they're going to be seeing all the.
Yeah, that didn't sound creepy.
When they come out here and hang out with Uncle Kente and Uncle Brandon, they're going to come back to you like all kinds of terrified of like all kinds of things. They're going to be like just troopers, man.
They're going to be like, the price is wrong, bitch.
Yeah, the price is wrong.
They have seen Happy Gilmore.
Oh, they've seen Happy Gilmore? Okay.
Oh my God.
But I think it's safe to say, getting back to the topic at hand, when it comes to Indiana Jones, it was definitely a set of movies where not only did each movie expand on the
You need to send it back.
original concept, but added creatively to the story where we sort of built this lore, this mythos around the singular character. And to touch on something Brandon said a little bit earlier, as far as Indiana Jones's companions, it is interesting to see that they didn't follow the same formula from movie to movie, at least as far as the companion type. Because, like you said, Brandon, the first movie, she was strong. She was able to hold her own. The second movie, pretty much completely helpless.
Yeah.
So just seeing the dynamic at play there with Indy being with someone strong versus being with someone helpless. And then the third one, I will say his dad was the companion, and we lost Brandon.
Well, you know, he's Dr. Jones, not Doctor Who.
Right.
Dr. Jones.
But to see that third part of the dynamic play out to where it went from, strong female to not weak, but less strong, and to someone that was strictly basically an intellectual. I think that's a good way to put it. And to see Indiana Jones as a character deal with very different people really expanded on the character. So I thought that made each movie unique in a very positive way. But, say something if you disagree. Oh, no?
No,
I'm sorry. Hold on one second. I'm handling an issue. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Brandon, you with us?
Yeah, I don't know what just happened there. Who's calling somebody? Oh, that was I don't know what's going on with my camera here. So, yay!
Everyone's gone. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
I'm gonna do it. God, I hate this thing. The microphone level just rising automatically. I hate it.
Oh my God, this is just like a mess of a show.
Oh, we've had worse.
I know.
Anyway,
I know.
it's time to get to something that I hesitate to talk about because, as we all know, I am a massive, massive fan of Back to the Future.
Oh yeah.
And that first movie is practically perfect in every way. It almost wasn't because, of course, Eric Stoltz, right? That would have put everything in a very drastically different tone. And unfortunately, growing up, you learn that maybe the moral of the story isn't quite as wholesome as you quite remember from the 80s. But the fact remains, it has stayed my favorite movie for decades. And I'm going to say I love the sequels, even Back to the Future 3. Unfortunately, what I can't say is that they were necessary.
I've been saying that for years.
Nobody asked you, Kente.
The first movie ends perfectly.
Yes, it does. And then somebody said, "Hey, there's a story to be told there." Sure. I like that idea. There is a story to be told there, but do we need to tell it? Probably not. Did they get some good stories out of it? Yeah. But when it comes to having everything wrapped up in a nice, neat bow with, this awesome quasi cliffhanger ending. You can't do much better than what they had. Doc Brown coming back. Something's got to be done about your kids, Marty. It was a great ending. Do I wish they hadn't made the sequel? Like I said, no, I love the sequels. But even as big a fan as I am, I have to admit they are not as good as the first one. We saw some really iconic things in part 2. It brought to light, I think, a future that we didn't really get to see much of in the form of live action movies. When it comes to the future, the Jetsons had a nice, flashy image of what the future is going to be. But a lot of the times in film or even some TV shows, there was always some awful element. Like, we have this, but everything's terrible.
Yeah.
With Back to the Future, they get to the year 2015, and you know what? It's basically Hill Valley. It's what Hill Valley's been since 1955. People just going about their days, except they have a lot of cool new stuff. And I thought, okay, for a continuation of the story, that's cool. And then when they go back to 1955 and actually splice in the action from Back to the Future Part 2 with footage from Back to the Future, it got a lot of press because something like that hadn't really been executed before. Splicing your two movies together in a way that mixed the same actor in the same scene from two different movies. It was a great execution.
Oh, yeah.
But when you get to part 3, and this is, Brandon, if you hold this against me, I swear to God. In part 3, where things fall apart a little bit, because the way I see things when it comes to sequels and reboots is I look at it in the form of a pitch meeting, right? Where somebody says, what can we do next? And in part 2, you can see the conversation kind of play out like, okay, we already teased that he's got to go to the future to do something about his kids. So, yeah, that it makes perfect sense that we add on to that. Fine.
Okay.
Cool. Sure. Let's someone write it, get it done. What are we going to do for a third movie? And that's when somebody says, what about the Wild West? No real plot points, no real reason to go there that ties, directly to anything that happened in the first two movies. Just some passing mentions of Doc Brown going, "Oh, I'd love to go to the Old West," that kind of thing.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
You're wrong.
Didn't the letter that he sent Marty at the end of Back to the Future 2 say, "Do not come for me"?
Mm-hmm.
I've been living very happily here in the Old West.
Yeah.
But because he finds out that Doc Brown was killed in some kind of scuffle, killed, murdered, same thing. He died.
Shot in the back. What, $10?
Yeah, something like that, over a horseshoe or something.
Well,
then he goes back because he's got to. But then he's got to go back and he's got to rescue Doc Brown. But my only qualm with Back to the Future 3, my biggest issue with Back to the Future 3, and yeah, Josh, I give you shit over Back to the Future. I do enjoy the series. I love the Back to the Future series. I just, mess with you a lot. But all my joking aside, my biggest issue with Back to the Future 3 is that every single thing that Doc Brown had practiced about preserving the space-time continuum and not setting off anything that might change the future. Okay, black screen. Can you guys see me?
No.
You guys can't see me, can you?
No.
Okay. Okay, great. But pretty much it's the scene where they take a picture of themselves in front of the clock, the face of the clock that's going up on the clock tower.
Uh-huh.
Like they posed that picture in 1885. That is pretty much going to go into the library. The only other issue that I have with the Back to the Future series is that Biff flat out tries to rape Lorraine in Back to the Future 2. He is about to rape Lorraine. And then he's working for them in the future. I know it's 30 years later, but this is a guy just that tried to rape your wife that you laid the fuck out outside of your. Oh, there's my 2 per episode, I guess. Sorry, that you laid out outside the high school dance. Why would you be friends with him as an adult or even hire him? He tried to rape your wife at one point before you, like when you guys were young and dating.
Because up until the 2010s, Boys Will Be Boys was still a thing.
I always found issues with that. But my biggest one was always like the clock tower thing. Like you guys are going to take pictures that's going to go into the historic records of Hill Valley. So there's going to be pictures of you at some point. And then he makes a time-traveling train. He removes people from their own timeline, his wife and his two kids at that point.
His wife wasn't supposed to be alive, and the kids.
I know, and that's the other thing. He rescued her from falling into the ravine.
Uh-huh.
Like, Doc Brown's a very selfish son of a bitch.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. But I hope we get like a live action of Rick and Morty and they have Christopher Lloyd play, Rick. We need this.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I actually am going to have to get going because I have to get ready to go to work tonight and everything else. So I'm sorry, everybody. I do have to call this.
Yeah, I'm sorry too. Damn.
But how about this? I have an idea. How about we make a sequel to this episode for next week?
Yeah, we'll call it the Squeakle.
The Squeakle.
Mm-hmm.
WADcast 2, The Return.
Right.
And I'll get Christopher Lloyd to join us.
There we go.
So
I'll try to get Michael J. Fox.
And I'll try to get Robert Zemeckis.
You know what? You know who I want on the show is Crispin Glover. That man is such an underrated character actor.
Man, he did Willard. He did Willard, so forget him.
And he was amazing in Willard.
I'll never watch that.
Oh, God. But either way, guys, I do have to get going. BJacksman82, the WADcast on Instagram, and the WADcast on Facebook, and the WADcast.com. That's where you can find us, find me. You guys have a great night. I do have to go do some adulting. I do not have off on Friday nights like all you other boys and girls do. But yeah, kisses, loves, Kente. Always good to see you, buddy. We are going to have to meet up one of these days and grab lunch or grab coffee or something.
That's a good idea. Yeah, let's do that.
Because we're both in LA County here. So, but you guys have a great night. Josh, love you. And I'll talk to you guys later on.
Get off my plane.
Get off my show, bitch.
So.
Right. You can get me at Kente F on Twitter, Kente Ferguson on Instagram, and of course the website is theindyradio.com. That's THEINDY radio.com. How can we get you, Josh?
As always, you can go to wadcomedia.com. Okay, maybe not as always, but now you can. And you can always go to Twitter at SkidComic. And maybe one of these days, my microphone level won't magically keep shooting all the way up to the top, making my levels just... I hate this. I have no idea why it's doing this, and I hate it.
It's racist.
Maybe it is. Maybe it is. So I guess next week I'll finish my thought on Back to the Future 3 and why, well, it had some issues. Finish my analogy about the pitch meeting. That'd be awesome. But I guess if we're wrapping this up, it's time for me to get to the final thoughts. Wasn't prepared for finishing up this early, so I gotta get everything in order.
Jerry. I'm sorry, Josh.
There we go. There's the music. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we've reached the end of another episode of the WADcast, the 88th episode to be precise. We talked a little bit about sequels, what works, what doesn't, and this conversation is to be continued. How about that? Is that irony? I don't know. But the thing I'm going to tell you, the thing that you need to remember is the only thing standing between you and your dreams is you. If you want to be creative, there is nothing stopping you from doing that. If you want to write, start writing. If you want to be a director, if you want to be someone that shoots film, take your phone, start getting some footage in. There are free bits of editing software all over the internet. You don't need thousands of dollars to make a movie. You don't need tens of dollars to make a movie. All you need is some basic gear, maybe a couple friends, and pretty much the internet. And if you're listening to this show, chances are you have at least one of those things. So don't stand in your own way. Do it. Don't wait until tomorrow to start. Do it now. Whenever you're listening to this, wherever you're listening to this, do it. Because I don't think anybody's going to say the world has too many artists. Because artists are the people that make the world beautiful. Okay, so this has been the WADcast number 88. I'm Josh. That guy over there is Kente. Brandon was here earlier. Much love to all of yous, and we will see you next week. This has, it's been a blast.